Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, a podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. And now your host, David Ginsburg.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Tales from the Fandom. We are recording in April, and this episode is going to come out in June when you are listening to it now, or maybe you're listening to it even later after June. But I am joined today by Marissa. You might know her on Instagram as Canon Piper, and I am so excited to have her on the podcast today. Welcome, Marissa. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
I am doing okay. I am so happy that we have finally connected to get this episode recorded. I've been following you for a while. I've loved what you do on your Instagram page with your cosplay and your videos that you post on your Instagram stories. So I'm excited to talk to you about fandom.
Thank you very much.
So your name lends itself well to the first fandom that we're going to talk about, and we're talking Percy Jackson and the Riordanverse, as I call it, or as it's kind of known around the fandom realm, because it's got so many different books in the Percy Jackson series ish, and I like that you are Canon Piper, because I feel like Piper is, and I feel like Piper doesn't get enough love.
Oh yeah, I agree. Actually, I chose my username. This is a misconception that a lot of people think that I'm like claiming to be the most canon version of Piper, but I guess over the years I got tired of the fandom kind of portraying her fanon version where she's this typical Aphrodite girl that loves to go shopping, loves to get her nails done, loves the color pink kind of thing. So I kind of, when I started this account, my Canon Piper Instagram account, it was actually just a meme account of sorts. I did some cosplay, but it was mainly a Piper account to just show appreciation for this character that I grew up to love, and like I wanted to be her when I read these books so many years ago. And so I got really tired of the portrayal, so I originally was Nicolene the Beauty Queen, and I changed it to Canon Piper because once I started shifting my account over to being mainly cosplay, I just wanted to kind of show people that Piper is much more than what the fandom portrays her as. So I went with Canon Piper to kind of signify that. And although, I've broadened my cosplay interests and like what I put out since then, I still stand true by my username. I prefer not to wear makeup with cosplaying her unless it's a version of her from the first books when she gets her Aphrodite's blessing. But I try to stick with stuff that's pretty canon to the books for her because I just want to show people she's not like other girls, I guess, like most people would say for her. But yeah, that's how I got my username for her. But
well, how did you first get into the Percy Jackson series? Like, how did you get introduced to it?
So this is gonna sound really bad. So I was over at my cousin's house, and I don't even remember how old I was. I want to say I was at fifth. I had to have been in the fifth grade. Fourth or fifth grade. So just imagine little me. I go to my cousin's house and she's all excited about this trailer she sees on the TV. And I'm like, what the heck? And she's like, the Percy Jackson books are getting a movie. And so I'm like, okay, I guess I got to get into this. So I picked up the first book. And I was like, oh my gosh, these are amazing. So coincidentally, it's the movies itself that got me into the series. And then I realized how trash the movies are in comparison. That always happens to me, though. Like, the same thing happened for Avatar. The movie came out, and I was like, oh, I love this fandom, but this movie is trash. But yeah, I went over to my cousin's house, and the trailer was on. So I went home, I picked up the light movie, and I started reading from there. And by the time I finished the whole series, The Lost Hero was getting released 2 weeks later. So I thought that was crazy.
That is, I mean, to come into the series with the movie and then going to the books, I mean, the it's just one of those things where it's like there is no movie to me. Like there's no Avatar: The Last Airbender movie. That hasn't happened.
It doesn't
There,
exist.
there's no Percy Jackson movie. And my daughter is in the 5th grade now, but they were reading The Lightning Thief in 4th grade, and then they watched the movie. She came home and she was so upset about what they did so wrong in the movie, and it's not like that. And how dare they change it?
I agree. Literally, I was on TikTok the other day and I was scrolling and I just see a scene from the movie playing on my feed and I was like, how did this get on my feed? Like it was so foreign to me. Like I've watched this movie at least 17 times. I was obsessed with this movie before I realized how trash it was, okay? And then I saw the clip and I was just like, how could I allow myself to at one point in my life like this so much that I almost memorized the script? But everyone starts somewhere. So I mean, I'll give the movie the praise that it kind of got word that the books do exist because then more people would have been exposed to it to be able to read it. And I've met so many nice people because of this fandom that honestly, like, props to the movies for even getting me introduced in the first place. So I'll give credit where it's due.
Absolutely. And that is, the good thing about some of these movies is that they do bring people to the original stuff, and then people can discover how wonderful they are.
Yeah.
Now, again, the Percy Jackson series spans like a bajillion books at this point. Do you have like a favorite, or do you have like a favorite series? And I don't want to make you pick like just one. So if you got like 3 or 2, whatever you want to do.
So I've always been the person to say that I'm not a person to choose favorites, but with Percy Jackson, I can pull out an answer surprisingly. So I don't know if it's because my girl Zoe Nightshade, I love her so much, but Titan's Curse has a special place in my heart. I did a web series a while ago as Zoe Nightshade, and I got to meet my best friend out of it. So I love the Titan's Curse for that reason. And then so I like so if I have to choose between series, I have my different reasons for liking different series, like the nostalgia between Percy Jackson and the Olympians. I absolutely love it and the characters that come with it. But Heroes of Olympus is a completely new storyline with many different characters that are diverse and come from different backgrounds that I absolutely love and adore. So I love the fresh new faces that come with the Heroes of Olympus, and even with Trials of Apollo, even though Bernie Mays.
I totally respect your Zoe Nightshade love. I
Mhm.
feel I feel like I almost wish if they could do like another spin-off of the Percy Jackson universe. Like I'd love to see the Hunters kind of get like their, maybe not like a 5-book series, but I'd love like a trilogy, just kind of
Yeah,
exploring them through time, because I would love to get just into their history and culture and what they've done since, since the old Greek times, and then going up to and through like some of the events in the different series that they show up in. But yeah, Zoe Nightshade, that is a character where you get to know the character, and then you're like, I want more.
I know you become so attached to characters like her, only for them to be ripped away. And like, I will stand by this, but like by the end of the book, I feel like I mean, I don't think this is a spoiler alert at this point,
No,
but
there's no spoiler alerts. You're good.
Uh, I mean, I have to be careful because of how many dead characters I cosplay at this point. So, but with by the time you get to the end of the books, I feel like if she hadn't died, like her and Percy would have been such great friends, and I stand by that because like you get to her as she's dying and she's accepting Percy as he is. Like he's not like Hercules, and he's not like all other men that she's encountered in her life. And I stand by that if she hadn't have died, they would have been such great friends. Like I can just imagine it.
It is so true. I mean, and I guess that's one of the things with the series is that they have such a great rotating cast of supporting characters, and then you get attached to those, like, not, I don't want to call them background characters, but you're like, hey, I really like when that character showed up. I can't wait to see them again. And it's like, oh yeah, they died.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot.
that's my specialty, good background characters. I can't even help it at this point. Like, at this rate, I become attached to a character and I love them and I'm like, I'm gonna cosplay them. And then later on I find out that they die. So it's fun becoming attached to dead characters.
Absolutely. One of the things that I love, and you had mentioned it about the Heroes of Olympus series, is you go from Percy Jackson, which follows like the trio of characters, generally like Annabeth, Percy, and Grover, with some exceptions. There's they get some team ups here and there, but with Heroes of Olympus, you see like not only the Greek side but the Roman side, but you also see this incredible diversity of characters between characters like Frank and Hazel and Leo and Piper, and you're like, man, like I love their backgrounds, I love their stories. One of my favorite my favorite character in the entire series is Frank, because his arc from when you meet him in Son of Neptune through what's going on in Trials of Apollo has just been such an incredible story to read. But I love that it's not just the main characters are what they are, and you get more flavor, some more background, some just things that you wouldn't normally read in maybe a youth adult book, so to speak.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, what's it called? Frank is such an underrated character in the fandom, I feel. In general, I see this a lot with comments from the fandom about how a certain character should not belong in the Seven because they are not powerful. But if you think about it, the Seven are literally prophesized in the Great Prophecy because they are the strongest demigods of their time. They were hand chosen because they're all powerful in their own senses. Like, you've got Annabeth's matched battle strategy and just Annabeth being Annabeth. I love Annabeth. But there's like so much more to Annabeth than Percy, as there's so much more to Hazel than being Frank and Hazel, or just being this overall cinnamon roll that everyone just thinks wouldn't curse, yet she was put in a dunce cap in her first life for cursing and had her mouth washed out with soap. And Frank's lifeline is literally tied down to a piece of stick. I don't think people understand how powerful he is for just that one reason alone. And I've speculated this before, but if in the books, the first books, they mention how ADHD and dyslexia are usually traits of demigods because it's their battle strategy in a sense. I had this thought like a while ago. I was like, well, it's never mentioned that Frank has ADHD and he definitely doesn't have dyslexia. So is that a possible, like, what would that make him if he did have those traits? Would that make him stronger in a sense? Or like, is that like an impairment? I don't know. Like, I've just kind of pondered this before because some of the demigods that you meet in the new series, I think Leo's the only one that I know for a fact has mentioned something about having ADHD. But the others you don't know for sure, but you know for a fact Frank doesn't have those. So going off of that, I've always pondered this question. Is that holding him back from being even more powerful, or like, is it a hindrance? I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, my thing with Frank, even before Trials of Apollo came out, and I used to like yell about it all the time, was, they always talk about how some demigods, if they don't get to Camp Jupiter or Camp Half-Blood, if they don't make it by like 11, 12, they kind of just are monster food at that point. Frank didn't even know he was a demigod until what, 15 or 16.
Yeah.
And he's got the two bloodlines mixed together of Roman and Greek, plus tied to the stick. Like, it's just insane to even think about it at the beginning. Like, here's this guy who had no clue about anything at a much later age, and even Hera herself was like, he might be like one of the strongest demigods of all time.
Mm-hmm.
So
I agree.
yeah, it's incredible. And yeah, like I feel like, there's always going to be love for like Percy and Annabeth, and I don't begrudge people that, because you spent 5 books with them to begin with before you even get into the new series.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like the other 4, um with Hazel, Frank, Leo, and Piper, because I mean, Jason is Jason. I mean,
Jason is Jason.
like, but I feel like the other 4 just add such a great dimension that was kind of missing from that first series.
So I really liked what Rick at the Nachos After Party short that he added in recently. I really liked that he added that because I felt, even though it's somehow canon, but we don't know where exactly it would fit, I like how it kind of brings closure to the series, and it brings a reason to why Annabeth and Percy kind of like they need to have that step back from the series. I love Percy and Annabeth with a passion, don't get me wrong, but I agree with what was said. At the end of the day, they're demigods and they have to step back because it's kind of their fatal flaws, and yeah, at some point you have to realize that it's not going to be just you. It's going to be, it's going to be like a group effort. And sometimes you got to take a step back and let other people do it instead of doing it yourself. They had their time, and I'm really grateful that they gave that kind of closure. And I really liked the message that that short story sent.
I'm gonna have to go read that because I have not read that yet.
It's really good. It's only a couple pages long, but it's really good.
Awesome. I'm going to have to check it out. And for people that are listening, definitely go check out the series. It may be called Youth Adult, but it is definitely one of the strongest book series that I've read, and I enjoy it. And I'm, hitting 40 or over 40 at this point. But I got into it the same way you did, not with the movies, but with the books. By the time I finished the first 5, Lost Hero had just come out. So
Yeah.
I was into it late, but I got into it, and it's good.
See, it's never, you might be getting into a series late, but honestly, as long as you are having a good time, it's always a good time. And that's the message that I've always you can get into something later, but it's the overall enjoyment and the journey that you take that um that basically just shows your experience, and it makes it what it is.
So on top of Percy Jackson and that whole series of books, we're going to flip over to potentially, and what I have long considered to be one of the best, not just animated shows, but one of the best TV shows that I've ever watched. And I'm excited, not only for what we've watched previously, but the potential Netflix series that's coming out. I don't know when that's going to happen, especially with what's going on, but
Yeah.
the Avatar, the Last Airbender, Legend of Korra duality. I mean, I lean more towards Avatar just because I feel it's the stronger of the two, but I also like Korra. We'll get into both of those too.
Yeah.
How did you get into Avatar?
Um, so I started backwards again. So I used to go to New York, New Jersey area for summers in the 8th grade. And so I was in New Jersey and I was visiting my dad's family friend. And the daughter, I'm actually living with her right now. The daughter and her aunt had on season 3 of Avatar: The Last Airbender. So we were watching Book 3 Fire, and I'm just sitting here watching, and I don't understand anything that's going on. So I only watched, and it was like a couple episodes into the first half of the season. So I'm just sitting here not understanding what the heck I'm watching. And so I probably only watched 2 or 3 episodes, but I was still intrigued enough. And I was like, okay, this seems pretty cool. And then I never got the chance to finish watching because I didn't have access to Netflix. Or I think it was on Netflix at the time. Yeah, it was on Netflix at the time. I'm sad that they took it off of Netflix. But then I think the movie came out not too far long after that. And so my dad thought it was really cool. And so he rented it from Redbox and he came down to Florida. At the time, he wasn't living here with me. He came down to Florida to visit me and he rented it off of Redbox. And so we watched the movie on Netflix off of Redbox together, and from there we were kind of like, oh yeah, this is so cool. And then I was like, oh, I have Netflix now, I can go watch the show. And then I realized how trashy the movie was, and got sucked into the plot line of the show, and everything flowed and connected. And then I met more friends as a result. I met the same friend, one of my same close friends that I met in high school that is one of my closest friends now. I've met him. Percy Jackson and Avatar: The Last Airbender was actually what I had a drawing on my binder, and that's how we became friends.
That's awesome. Now, with Avatar, was there something that drew you to the story, or that hooked you to make you, like, after watching the movie, to just be like, besides like, oh, I just want to go watch it? Was there something that's like, hey, I need to check it out because I remember like those episodes?
I think so. I think I've always had like this kind of connection with not just the elements, but like I've always had this sort of interest in stories involving like supernatural things or just like superpowers in general. And uh, a whole year later, after I got exposed to Avatar, I actually started writing my first book, which I'm still working on to this day. And I think that ultimately was what drew me in, because I'm so like I love reading science fiction or anything to do with, oh, this person has some sort of supernatural ability, they can control something. And to this day I still read books like this, and I still watch TV shows, and I will become hooked on stuff like this. And I think that's like the whole bending world, and how like in depth you can go with it, how it's not just earth bending, you could do sand bending and you can do metal bending, and there's like millions of little other things that you can go in depth with. And I just thought that was so like cool, and it kind of blows my mind because you can go more in depth than you think. And whenever you're writing like a book or something yourself, you kind of have this mindset of, okay, these are the laws of my book, but then you have this thought, I am the world builder, I have control of what goes in here and what happens, I have the creativity to do something like that. So Avatar kind of exposed me to that, and I love it for that.
If you were a bender, what element would you be a bender of?
See, the test always says earthbender, but I say firebender. I mean, I think so. If you believe in zodiacs, I mean, whatever. I'm an Earth sign, Taurus, so I think that's what that comes from mainly. But I've always pretty much felt connected with fire, and um, I actually used to take on some, as my little eighth grade fan self would do. I used to do little things that a firebender would do. So I would use my legs a lot because firebending is power. So a lot of the moves can sometimes be with the legs. And I would drink tea to calm the mind because everyone wants an Uncle Iroh in their life, let's be honest. I just did a lot of things that firebenders would typically do, and I stand by that. my YouTube name is actually named after both Percy Jackson and and Avatar. Now that I think about it, wow.
Nice, nice. I know for me, like my favorite character, even as spanning because the character spans both series. My favorite character is Uncle Iroh, and he may be like hands down one of my top 5 characters in any TV show or movie or book of all time.
Oh yeah.
Who do you love from the series? Who is your go-to Avatar person?
Oh, that's a hard one. Well, personally, and this is an unpopular opinion, is I can't rank any of these in like a specific order. This is
That's
just
okay.
me going. So I like Korra because she shows off that first of all, we know Kyoshi is a female avatar way before Aang, but Korra is the first one that we get to see as the show progresses, and I love her for that and how she's very much unlike Aang. And a lot of people don't understand that she's supposed to be not like Aang because
Mm-hmm.
their elements are different. Different elements are not gonna be the same. And I know that a lot of people have a hard time kind of letting go of the fact that Aang is now dead, but he's dead. Sorry guys, Aang is Korra now. But I like Korra for that, and just her plot line is very different from most, and you kind of see her go through different things. Katara, because who doesn't love a mom friend,
Mm-hmm.
and who doesn't love her spiels about, I mean, it's not just about hope, but just like the empowerment that Katara gives people and the hope that she brings in general. Everyone wants a Katara figure in their life, I feel. And she's lovable. Uncle Iroh, again, because who doesn't want an Uncle Iroh in their life? Everyone could use a life changing moment with Uncle Iroh. Toph, she's so strong, incredibly strong, and I need to catch up on the comics because I know there's more Toph goodness in there with both series regarding their comics. I need to catch up on both of them, but I love the comics I did read. Did go a little more in depth on Toph and her starting the Metal Bending Academy.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was really insightful because then you go on to see it, and in Legend of Korra, you see what metal bending has progressed into, and it's just awesome.
Absolutely, man. You hit a range of characters there. I love I like I mean, okay. I totally understand where you come from with your statement, especially of, Korra is not Aang, because it's such a different thing. Like Aang was told that he was the Avatar way early in life.
Mm-hmm.
Korra, you kind of just you see her busted and she's like, I'm the Avatar, deal with it. Kind
Yeah.
of, you're coming from 2 different backgrounds, 2 different like everything. And I kind of wish that the comparisons would stop because the avatars shouldn't be the same. They're there for like that generation to deal with those generation problems and hopefully set things better for the future.
Yeah. And I've this is another thing that I stand by that I'm not sure if this is actually something what was intended or not, but I stand by it. I think that Avatar and Legend of Korra in itself is an overall arc of light and darkness. In Legend of Korra, they talk a lot about light and darkness. And so, in a sense, if I had to compare them, I would say that Avatar is like the light, while Korra is the darkness, because Legend of Korra does delve into some more deeper topics than Avatar does, which I'm totally fine with that. I just think it's this overall arc of light and darkness. So if there was any comparison, I would say that would be it because the messages are totally different.
Mm-hmm.
You can be the strong person that everyone looks up to, and you can still go through PTSD and face depression and anxiety and struggles in life. It's normal to, it's okay to have those things and be a strong person everyone looks up to. And then with Avatar, it's like this familial, as long as we've all got each other, we'll be okay until the end kind of thing. And I love that.
Absolutely. And I love how quickly, like once, Avatar ends, the Fire Nation is not in control anymore, and you get this rapid progression of just going from almost like a very low fantasy with the exception of like the bending, to now you're in like a steampunk, almost Victorian kind of age with the non-benders doing a lot of stuff that if they don't need benders to do it anymore, they can do it themselves. And
Yeah.
even like the change to having the bending league, like for that sports style game that they do, and it's just like it's so wild to see like how things change from one generation to the next so quickly. But I love that, and I love how they design the cities and design the characters and the clothing styles and just everything from what it went from like Last Airbender to Korra.
It's more modernized in a sense. And, it's funny because I saw this text post that said, oh, all these places that Avatar The Last Airbender is based off of. But what is Korra based off of? But Korra, actually, Republic City, is based off of a variety of different cities. I know they mentioned New York. I think they mentioned Chicago slash San Francisco, as well as a couple other cities that are well known in Asia. And they did a more 20s take on the, you know, those cities and areas. And I just like how you can tell that everything is more modernized and how life has progressed since the events of Avatar The Last Airbender.
Absolutely. And I know you mentioned the comics. I know that they're out there. I've read just very few of them, but I know that they expand on the world. And not only am I hoping, this Netflix series, once it comes out, like, nails
Hmm.
what we watched in the animated version. I I cross my fingers at some point that Nickelodeon realizes what they have, and they're like, "Hey, you know what? Let's get a third series, like a third animated series going." I
Hmm.
don't know whether I'd love like a prequel kind of series to Avatar or something that even goes further into the future. Like I could almost see, like, I don't know if you've seen the movie Onward, but
Yes.
I could almost see like having to have an Avatar deal with like complete modernization where it's like they aren't even needed anymore.
Hmm. That would be an interesting take, actually.
Okay, so we talked about some really good young adult books, and we talked about some animated series, but now we're going to go back to the young adult books. Although, you know, they might be young adult, but yet again, they are for everybody, and that is the Hunger Games series, books, movies, whatever it may be.
Yes.
So again, how'd you first get into the Hunger Games?
My best friend was turning 11 or 12, one or the two. And her birthday, it actually just passed. She just turned 21 the other day. Her birthday was a couple weeks after the release of the first movie. So she decided, as an early birthday present kind of thing, that she wanted to go see the new Hunger Games movie. So, yet again, I
Hmm?
got introduced because of movies. But I remember going into the movies. Now, this is the exception to the movies are trash thing because there's only a couple. Well, I say a couple, but it's probably a lot more than a couple. There's probably only a couple things that I really have a problem with that did not transfer between book to movies. But I'm okay with the movies, and I actually do still watch the movies to this day. I eh, I remember walking out of the movie theater, and it was on. I was in my mom's van on my way home, and I remember that was really good. And then we had to read a snippet of uh, the Hunger Games. I forget which chapter. We had to read a snippet of it for our language arts class, and then I was completely sold. I went to go read the book, and then someone spoiled part of the last book for me 20 minutes before I got to the part. But all good, all good. And I'm really excited for the prequel that's going to be released at the end of next month.
My wife and I were told about the book series at one point, so we picked it up because somebody had raved about it. They're like, "Oh, you've got to read this," and I remember, like, especially with the first book, I could not put it down. I just had to keep reading, keep reading, keep reading.
Yeah,
Uh, I hated to have to go to sleep, and I just put the bookmark in and then pick it up the next day. But so good. I loved the characters, and honestly, when the movie came out, I loved the movie. I love watching the first one. I like watching the second one. I have my own, like, personal nitpicky stuff with like the third book and
oh
the third
yeah,
movie, but I understand I'm not the writer and I'm not the one making the movie and everything.
yeah,
But I really love Katniss. I really love her character. I love that you can have people look up to her as this character who's like, I didn't want to do it. Like, I don't want to be in this thing. It's not cool, but I'm not letting my sister go in and dying from it, essentially.
yeah. I remember. I remember watching the part one of the movies, and just not. I personally don't think that the third book should have been split into two movies, but I get it. Money ploys. As one does in the industry, but there's differences between the books and movies, and it's a as I'm actually rereading the books on live streams just so that people have something to do while
Hmm.
in quarantine. Um, as I'm rereading it, I'm realizing with the people that I'm reading it with that, in a sense, the movie version is exactly like what the Capitol would have done, what the Capitol does. It Instead of focusing on the fact that these are literally squishy teenagers going into an arena to fight to the death, they kind of glamorized around the love triangle that is Katniss, Peeta, and Gil. And they kind of focused more on that for some parts of the stuff. Like, more kiss scenes were in Catching Fire than really necessary, in my opinion. But it kind of glamorized around that. And then I remember, I think it was Mockingjay Part 1 is the movie where the hanging tree was introduced.
Hmm.
It's in the title of the song what the hanging tree is. It's a song about committing suicide, essentially, and just asking your lover, are you going to meet me at the tree, in a sense. And it progresses. Like, it goes from, are you going to meet me to the tree? I'm already at the tree. You eventually find out at the end of the song, I believe, that the person singing the song is already dead. They're
Hmm.
already in the tree. Not the capital. The movie industry essentially took that song and made it a more peppier, upbeat, poppy song, which is such a thing the Capitol would have done.
I remember that. Like, I remember, like, it was such a beautiful moment in the movie, and then you hear it, like, on the radio with, like, this weird, like, poppy kind of techno-y song going on. You're like, what? Like, I don't get it.
So when that came out, I want to say, so I have siblings that are fairly younger than me. So they were even younger than they are right now. And when that came on the radio, I've never felt more like a parent in that instance where you hear a song and you're like, okay, we're changing the radio. Because I just did not like that. I was like, no, we're changing the radio right now. My mom's like, what? I don't understand. And I'm like, Mom, the song, it's not a good song. It's not even supposed to sound like this. She's like, okay, I don't know, because she's not really paying attention to what it means, and she doesn't know what it means because she's barely paying attention to what it even means to begin with. So I'm just like, Mom, trust me on this one. This is not a good one. Nuh-uh. I just did not like that message that it sent. I personally felt uncomfortable because I felt like it was almost promoting what was going on in the song. I was like, yeah, no. But
Obviously Katniss is like the primary, the main character. I want to ask, like, is she your favorite? Do you have a different favorite? Because there are so many characters in this series. I want to ask, like, if you have a favorite, or if you got like a couple that you're like, these are my go-to Hunger Games people.
actually, my favorite's Peeta Malark. And it's funny because I'm within a Hunger Games Amino community, and so I primarily am the cosplayer on that community because no one really cosplays. But I do roleplay, and it's funny because I think I'm like one of the only people that like PETA, but I just love, as in the books, Haymitch mentions that he's got this self-deprecating humor going on kind of thing. I love how in the books he kind of just makes a lot of like baking jokes that did not make it to the movie. I will stand by the fact that the movies erased the baking jokes out because they are hilarious. I mean, come on, like he literally mentions if I could frost myself to death. Like how hilarious is that? But um and then he's just so sweet in comparison to like most male characters that you see in other young adult novels or just novels in general. Like normally you see a male figure and he's all tough and he knows everything, da 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 da. And I just love like the different dynamic that Katniss and Peeta have going on about them, about being the two main characters, because they're not like most other young adult characters that you meet. Peeta's got so sweet and he's loving and caring, and he knows how to talk around things in a sense, and he's good with words. And I just love that he's different from most other characters that you meet. Now, I do also love Finnick too. I love Finnick, but I think that's all for like obvious reasons. Like, who doesn't love Finnick? I mean, I'm sure there's people that don't like Finnick, but I love Finnick, and he didn't deserve what he got.
Yeah, that is definitely like his reveal later in the series. I was like, whoa, take it back a moment. Let me read that again just to make sure I'm getting what's being put down.
Yeah. And it's so deep because you realize that Finnick, yeah, he's all attractive and whatnot, and he was the youngest to win his games at the age of 14, and you realize the Capitol threw him in basically for sex appeal, and he was sold for sex almost in a sense. And it's crazy because it's like there's more to this story that most people just block out of their minds. Like I've come across so many people and I've gotten so many comments of people disregarding things that happen in the Hunger Games. Like I've gotten comments that say Hunger Games does not have anything to do with racial inequality or anything. Yes. Yes. I've it's crazy because I made a video and I basically in the video on TikTok, it's actually my most liked TikTok. I basically said Katniss is most likely whitewashed in the movies, and she is potentially a POC character. And I backed myself up in a couple of videos showing screenshots of official interviews with Suzanne Collins that states that the Hunger Games takes place in a world where racial, ethnic mixing, cultural mixing has occurred. So it's essentially what our world would look like in about like 1,000 years. Everyone would basically be a mixed kid in a sense because so much mixing has occurred. So it takes place in a world where all that has happened already. But I think most of the fandom just disregards it because it's not flat out mentioned in the book,
Hmm.
which it's crazy because like sometimes you don't need something to be flat out said to know that that's what's going on. And it's crazy that people just, you know, completely throw that out the window. Like the amount of comments that I get saying, no, Katniss is 100% white because her mother and sister have blonde hair and blue eyes. Like, as someone who's mixed, that kind of hurts. First off, I I'm currently trying to kind of a little more, shed a little more light on just mixed kids in general because I don't think that's something a lot of people seem to understand in a sense. Because first off, people are disregarding Katniss's father, which he comes from the Steam, which is generally the lowest of the lowest class, and her mother comes from the merchant class, and they had two kids together. And two kids do not necessarily have to look alike to be the same. And I
Hmm.
haven't read Kane Chronicles yet, but from what I know, Sadie Kane is white passing. Sadie Kane, I said her name right, right?
Yep, Sadie Kane. Yep.
Sadie Kane. Sadie Kane is white passing, but she is a mixed kid, and she deserves, she's just as much as a mixed kid as say Prim would be if potentially Katniss is mixed. So that's what I'm trying to kind of shed light on in the community right now because it's not clicking through people's minds that that could be a possibility, regardless of, you know, that biology exists, but whatever. Um, Racial inequalities, the whole fact that there's a money inequality in a sense, or that they are being oppressed, and then being sold for sex. There's a lot more reasons behind it, and I had to look up a bunch of reasons. I often do in college. It's a go-to thing for me to present on banned books. So I'll look up a list of books for whatever class I tend to be reading a book for, and I will look up reasons why a book might have been banned, and these were all literal reasons why the Hunger Games had been banned in other countries. So it also got banned for nudity or just sexual actions at one point, but I don't know. I guess because the mention of being sold for sex, but it's something I have presented on before. So like I know I have a general knowledge of what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. And one of the things I always found ridiculous was when like the first Hunger Games movie came out and they were like, well, that movie was good, but why is Rue black? And it's like, what? Were
She's
you
supposed to
re-
be black.
were you reading the same thing that I read? Because I'm just shocked that you would even have that in your mind.
Yeah, so going back to what I said about the screenshots that I pulled from official interviews. So Katniss Everdeen, Suzanne Collins basically said that she wanted Katniss to be a character in which anyone could kind of picture themselves as. Hence why her description is very vague. She's got black hair, she's got gray seam eyes and olive skin. She's Suzanne Collins says that she is described vague for that specific reason that anyone can picture themselves as Katniss and feel empowered. She's one of the first female lead characters you see that is phenomenal in a sense because look at the success that followed both the movies and the books, and for people to kind of like brush off Ruin Thresh, like there's specifically I believe I remember brown satin skin. That's literally how Katniss describes her in the books in the training center. So for someone to say why is Rue black is kind of them being oblivious to the fact that there are, there are racial differences. And even then, it's like, why are you questioning why they included someone that is POC? Like, I'm all for people like The Little Mermaid live action that's gonna have come out in the future. I'm all for the Ariel that they casted. Like, I'm so here for it.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'm excited. That people are still getting into like the Hunger Games series, and I love that there are people who are, I love what you're doing on your Instagram, pointing things out, not only like in the Hunger Games, but like especially with the Percy Jackson universe and just people, getting it recognized or getting it out there with the ridiculousness that people have sometimes with these materials. And it's like, can you please like just get on the same page as us?
As someone that's basically been in the series for such a long time, I kind of feel like sometimes I do have to take a step back from, just being like I've been here for a long time. I've experienced some crazy things within many fandoms, especially Percy Jackson. One of them, gonna sound crazy, I received a death threat a very long time ago when I first joined the fandom, and I actually had to leave. But just as someone that's been involved in fandoms just for a really long time, sometimes you got to take a step back, but then sometimes you got to call people out and call it out like it is, because sometimes you can't pass up informing people of things that are important within the communities.
Absolutely. And that's just one of the things that I really like that you and so many others that I've talked with that they do is they speak up, even though it might cost them followers or people like checking their workout or anything of that nature, where it's like, and especially with like the DMs that I've seen screenshots of, and it's like, are you I hate that people have to deal with that, but I'm so proud of everyone for like standing up and saying what they need to say.
Enough is enough, kind of thing. Yeah.
Now, I found you through a number of mutual people that we both follow on Instagram, and as I said at the beginning, like we talked about your Instagram page, you also cosplay.
Yeah.
How'd you start doing that? Like, what was the drive to start dressing up?
My best friend took me. So my best friend, she did not want to have a quinceañera for her 15th. She did not want to do that traditional route. So what she wanted to do was she wanted to go to a convention and go to her first convention. And she basically said, dress up as your favorite character or something. We're gonna go and dress up and do the whole shebang. So I said, okay, I've never been to a convention before. So here I am, 15 years old, no, 14 years old, almost 15. And I'm like, I'm almost the same age as Piper. Let me do something from my closet. So I did that one outfit in The Lost Hero where she's wearing like this turquoise dress kind of thing, some leggings, some boots, and then her snowboarding jacket. Now, it is very unrecognizable, but I felt so proud of my little closet cosplay. And I think later on that year, I ended up buying a Camp Half-Blood t-shirt, but that was official. Piper was actually my official first cosplay. And then I didn't fully delve more into cosplay until a year later, where I got heavily into Attack on Titan. Like, I'm not in the fandom as much anymore, but I could tell you so many things about Attack on Titan that was how into Attack on Titan I was. So my first full official cosplay was an Attack on Titan garb. I think I did Sasha. And from there I started occasionally taking pictures until I finally got an Instagram, and then got a separate account and I ran a meme account. I see me cosplaying has gone on so many different accounts. I've literally gone through 4 different accounts before I finally settled on my current account. But I've done a little bit of everything everywhere. So then I made Canon Piper, and after about a year of running Canon Piper, I decided I'm not gonna do just Percy Jackson cosplays. I'm going to do all cosplays. And from there, I've been just kind of doing what I love and showing it off to people.
Do you have any favorites that you've done? Ones where you're like, dang, I can't believe I did it, but I look so good, or I pulled off that character so well?
Um, Korra. Korra has been my dream cosplay since before I knew cosplay was a thing. And I remember book 4 when I saw her in that green outfit in that arena that she was in, I
Hmm.
looked at it and I said, I wanna do that one day. And last year, I finally was able to do it. I'm still tweaking her a little bit here and there sometimes, but overall, when I first put on that cosplay, I felt so powerful. Like, I looked at myself and I said, I'm her. Like, this is me right now, and I am her. And I wouldn't, like, I just felt so empowered when I stepped into that cosplay. I still do to this day. I may not cosplay her as much as often as I'd like to, but anytime I set foot into that cosplay, I immediately feel that empowerment and I feel like I am Korra.
Yeah, it's I love the characters that you do. I know, like, I particularly love your Piper, of course. I love your Katniss. I really love like the look that you give her, and the style of like your poses and pictures that you've done. And I'm looking at your core now, like as you're talking about it, because that's one of the pictures that you sent over, and it's
Mhm.
just so it's just so good. Like I love it. Like I really want people, if you're listening to this podcast, go check out the Instagram page. It's in a link. Click on it and take a look, because what you put out, it is really like character oriented, and really nailing those characters that you're doing.
I try to bring each character to life as best as I can. I don't focus accuracy is one thing. I try to focus on it for more for some characters like Piper and Katniss are the characters I probably focus more on accuracy for, but other characters, if I can bring my own style into it, I definitely will. Um, and I just love bringing characters to life as they would appear. And as someone that is kind of starting to delve more into the acting world, I'm kind of putting myself out there. And it's these characters that I love and enjoy, and I just want to share that with people. And actually, like, I remember when I first became mutuals with the cosplayers, that actually inspired me to overall start cosplaying. It's this whole group called, I know there's Shinrai Faith on YouTube, but they have their own handles on Instagram. But they all ultimately inspired me to start cosplaying, and I had the chance to finally meet them, and I became mutuals with them over the summer at a convention. And I remember they said they were scrolling through my page and they said, "Oh my gosh, you cosplay Selena," and it was me. It was a scene that I posted of me doing her death scene, and felt I don't even know how I felt to this day, but I just love being able to pull that reaction out of other people, like, "I can't believe you did that."
That is always something good to come across, or good as comments, is, number one, hey, you're representing a character that's not really getting represented, but two, like having that feedback of, you know, that, like, how well you did of it.
Yeah.
What characters are on the horizon for you, or characters that you'd love to do, maybe this year or next year?
So, Rena Rouge from Miraculous Ladybug has been a plan of mine for the past year now. I'm just trying to figure out wig issues because I have never dyed a wig myself before. So I'm looking into possibly finishing her this year, especially with everything going on. I think I can afford to have time to do trial and errors. Deanne from Seven Deadly Sins, I've become attached to her recently. So I'm actually working on two outfits at the same time for her that I'd really love to get done and show off to the world. And then from the first anime that I've ever watched, Soul Eater, I want to do Soul Eater Evans and maybe eventually Maka Albarn, but I want to do Soul Eater Evans because I absolutely love him. I'm starting to try and do different characters than the ones that I typically do. I typically do cosplay a lot more female characters, but I want to delve more into character types that I don't usually portray, and kind of broaden my horizons on that.
Awesome. Now, for people who have listened to this episode and they want to find you out there on the great wide world that is the internet, what are the best places to do so?
So I have my Instagram, which is Canon Piper. My TikTok is also Canon Piper. And then both my YouTube and my Wattpad that I had mentioned before is RiptideFirebender, which is all one word.
And I will have the links to all those on the show notes and on the Facebook page and website. And I want to say thank you so much, Marissa, for coming and talking to me about your fandoms and about what you love, and being such a strong voice for the community, especially when it comes to diversity in these what are essentially young adult works, but really are for all ages, and just doing what you do, because I love it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/talesfromthefandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.